Over the last 2 decades, I have had the luxury of facilitating this course for thousands of individuals worldwide. Now, in that journey, I have seen people at various stages of their management and leadership careers. Some were brand new to managing and leading people. They needed help developing people, creating cohesive teams and getting their people to leave their baggage at the door and come into work and put their best efforts forward. Now, through the conversation over the coming weeks and months, they found the tools to do just that. And perhaps for the first time in their leadership and management journey and career, they were able to actually do that. I've had individuals who, in the middle stages of their management and leadership careers, sometimes they've been managing, leading people for 10, 15, 20 years or more on some occasions. Now, some of them would come in, they'd be a little cynical about the programme because they've been on various training and management programmes before, and they're sitting back and asking themselves, well, this is a time that I really don't have just now. I have fires to fight, I've got problems to solve, I've got things to get done. Maybe some of the things you're thinking yourself right now. But what's so interesting about those people who were initially sceptical is they find themselves 2 or 3 hours into the conversation, and all of a sudden they're sitting back in their chair and they're saying to themselves, I never quite saw it from that perspective before, or I never thought of that way before, or I wonder if I did this with that person, I wonder if I'd get a better response than what I'm doing right now. And suddenly they find themselves 2 or 3 sessions into this leadership programme, and they've really started to think differently about the men and women that they manage and lead. Now, still, the most important thing about our conversation over the next few weeks and months is this. Everything that we will talk about together will apply to you at work and on a personal and professional level. I want to tell you a story about a lady who attended this course a few years ago. Her name is Belinda Adams. Belinda was part of a cohort, and at the time she had a 15-year-old son at home, and I remember pulling me aside at one of the breaks, and she was telling me about this young man who'd recently been suspended from school and his grades had fallen. She said, James, I don't know for a fact, but I think he may be getting messed up with drugs. She said, every time I try to talk to my son, we end up yelling and screaming at each other, and we both end up storming off to different parts of the house. And she said, James, nothing gets resolved. If anything, it's just adding to the turmoil and, putting a wedge in our relationship with my son. So anyway, we discussed about how she could leverage the principles and strategies that we will discuss together, over the next few weeks with our 15-year-old son. Anyways, about a year later, I saw Belinda at a follow-up meeting that we did for our company. So we're going back in to do some additional work, and she comes running over and she hugged me and she says, James, you will not believe the difference in my son over the last year or so. She continues, excitedly, she said his grades have improved, he's hanging out with different kids at school, he's back playing football again. She says, James, he even cut his hair for the first time in over a year. She said, I cannot thank you enough. That conversation that we had throughout that leadership programme, James, it enabled me to understand my son as a person much better. James, it gave me my son back. Another story. I was at Heathrow Airport at Terminal 5, and it was just a few years ago, and I was waiting to catch a plane and, sitting in one of those, the wee cafes, and I was having a coffee, and I was on the phone to my wife, and I was telling her, when I was expecting to be home, and out the corner of my eye, I could see this man, and he was kind of looking at me, and he was walking over, and he was looking straight at me, and he was about 3 feet away from my face, and he stuck out his hand, and he says, Hi, James. He says, you probably don't remember me, but I was on one of your leadership groups a few years ago. You were talking about management, and you were talking about leadership, and you were talking about HPAs and all this business stuff. He says, James, at the time, he says, I'm really sorry, but my head just wasn't in the right place. As you were teaching the class, he says, I was really struggling to focus on the course content. I was going through a really rough patch with my wife. Things had literally got so bad that we'd literally taken pen to paper and we were figuring out who was going to get what in our divorce settlement. As I sat there that week during your course and I was listening to our conversation, something hit me like a ton of bricks. I realised that everything that we were talking about applied to me not only in business, but also at home as a husband. As we wrapped up the course at the end of the week, I was getting ready to walk out the door and I made a commitment to myself. The commitment was that before I went home and gave up on my marriage, I was going to practice what we talked about that week. You know, James, that was over 18 months ago. Now, not only am I still married, but I have one of the best marriages of anyone I know. James, I know this course wasn't necessarily designed to impact me in that way. He says, but you know the conversations that we had that week, the interaction and the stories that we told during the course, you know, it changed the course of my marriage. It saved my marriage. So I want to say thank you. Everything that we're going to talk about, you know, together over the coming weeks and months, they will apply to you, both personally and professionally. But you need to come into this process with an open mind. You need to be willing to be challenged. You need to really open the mind up to what's both possible and plausible. Now, don't do it for me. Don't do it for the business or organisation you work for, but instead do it for the people you care most about in life. I would like you all to take time to reflect and think about the conversation we have together. If you can do that, one simple thing, I'll promise you this. And by the way, it's something that I can make 100% promise on because I've had the privilege of watching it happen for hundreds of people just like you. People who are no different from you. People who are sitting in chairs in front of their laptop or computer or sitting in a training room just like you are right now. People are probably thinking exactly what you're thinking right now. The conversation that we're going to have over the coming weeks and months is like no other you've ever had before. Our conversation is all about leadership. And one thing is absolutely undisputable. The world that we live in today is woefully short of really great leaders and managers. If you doubt this, look at the challenges that we're all facing in every aspect of our society. They all trace their roots back to the same challenge, a fundamental lack of outstanding leadership. So our opportunity moving forward is to create really great leaders who want to change the way that you manage and lead, great leaders who want to drive performance and productivity, but in a way that grows and develops the people that you manage and lead. And that's what our conversation will be all about over the next few weeks and months. And I'm excited to share the Motivational Intelligence Evolution with you. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful learning process.